The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, UNU Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
What's going on, everybody? It is Tuesday night right here on Armed Radio, and that means if you're turned in, you're listening to 2AT Second Amendment Talk. I am Daniel Sanders, and joining me as always is Rod Burks. Rod, how's it going?
Man, I'm boogtastic, thanks.
You're boogtastic? Oh man, that's what. Yeah, I think just for this show, I think we're gonna refer to it as the Boog Show, just for this show.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, like, it's in the news, it's in the media. I mean, hey, it's got to be a thing.
I mean, hey, if the shoe fits, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna lace it up and I'm gonna wear it.
Absolutely. So like we always do at the start of every show here, we want to give a big shout out to the troops, to the men and women serving overseas and on the home front. We appreciate everything y'all are doing for us. Keep up the good work. Come home safe. We're all rooting for you here back home. Pandemic, sure, I guess. Riots, okay. Boogaloo, imminent.
And for our listeners who don't know and who are as uneducated as I was this morning, somebody who is a boog boy, I guess, is somebody who is right-leaning. Oh, and wants to start the next Civil War.
I mean, if the shoe fits.
Yeah. I didn't know I had, like, the media had labeled me. You look long enough and you'll find somebody somewhere who has slapped a label on something that maybe they just don't understand or don't care to know.
Well, I mean, it's
and for anybody who's listening. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it's like a couple of years ago I saw this thing come out, and it's been more than a couple of years, where there was actually a part of Facebook, a little hidden section, where they were labeling individuals based off of their profile, labeling individuals what their political ideologies were. And I thought, no, surely this can't be a thing. So I followed the steps and I got to this section, and sure enough, they have my profile labeled as, I think it was very conservative or strongly conservative, something along those lines, just based off of the posts that I put on there and the stuff that I share on there.
I mean, I think the idea of having any kind of privacy in the digital world is foolhardy.
Privacy? Because what is that?
Exactly. I mean, everything you do, everything you look at, everything you click on, you're going to... somebody's selling that. I had a joke with my fiance, and I was like, yeah, our phones are listening to us. And so we started talking about cat food. I don't own cats. She doesn't own cats. I'm not a cat fan. But lo and behold, eventually I started getting advertisements for cat food, cat litter, shit like that. So I was like, yeah, it's got to be true, because I never clicked on anything that had anything to do with cats.
It really is. It really is, because just a few months ago, I was talking with somebody, telling them about the NASA Space and Rocket Center that we have here in Huntsville. And, I mean, I was talking to them over the phone about it. It wasn't, a text message or anything like that. I was talking to them voice over the phone. And 15 minutes later, I check my Facebook, I'm browsing my timeline, and I see an advertisement for Space Camp at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, Alabama.
How about that?
So, yeah, they're listening. So, if you've got your
Yeah,
little tinfoil
and
hat, you need to put it on.
and even then, I don't think it's going to work. Unless you're using, that tinfoil duct tape over your mouth and your eyes and your fingers. Yeah. Just put yourself in a little glass bubble, and that's, I think, maybe the best form of isolation. But let's talk about the real world. What's going on in the real world today?
Well, I mean, like we were just talking about, the Boogaloo is imminent. Stone Mountain, Georgia, the NFAC, which I found out stands for the Not Fucking Around Coalition. On the 4th of July.
It's the National Firearms Act.
That's what I thought too. But no, this NFAC stands for Not Fucking Around Coalition. It is basically just from what I'm seeing, and you can cancel me all you want. I don't give a fuck. Fuck you. This is nothing more than an updated version of the Black Panthers. I said it.
Okay. So I don't know a lot about the Black Panthers. I did some research, and I think I talked about it, in fact, on another show, about how the Black Panthers were one of the original pro Second Amendment organizations. That was comprised of mostly, or just civilians. And their first demonstration, or first real notoriety, was at a then Governor Reagan rally. When you say that, though, so I don't know were the Black Panthers, were they bad? Were they good? I don't know.
Were,
is anybody who's?
I mean, I can't really say that they were all bad. Just like I can't say that there weren't as bad as this is going to sound. There are bad people in Black Lives Matter. There are bad people on the police force. There's also good people in Black Lives Matter and good people on the police force. I'm sure that there's, as far as the Black Panthers were concerned, they were a black militant group back during the Civil Rights era. I think they're still kicking doors somewhere. But for the most part, they were prevalent during the Civil Rights era, Vietnam era, stuff like that. They were a black militant group, and that's this NFAC, this Not Fucking Around Coalition. Based on what I've seen about them, that's very almost mirrored what the Black Panthers are. Cause
it's interesting, to say the least. So what this NFAC? What was their message?
So they showed up in Stone Mountain, Georgia, and the one of the leaders of this group, he is in the video that I saw on the 4th of July on Independence Day. They are marching through Stone Mountain, Georgia. They are in the middle of the street, and one of their leaders is on a megaphone, on a bullhorn, and he's basically calling out. He mentioned 3%ers, boog boys, white rednecks, all of this other crap. We're in your house. You brought out us. You brought out the black people, and we're in your house.
Well, I wish I could have been there to address the crowd, because if he was actually in my house, the problem he would have would be acute and transitory reasoning. In the state of South Carolina, the castle doctrine is very much in effect. So it's I'm actually glad he wasn't in my house. For his safety.
Oh, yeah, mine. Absolutely. And here's the thing about it. He didn't make any specific call to violence. He didn't say show up and we're going to beat your ass, we're going to shoot your ass, or anything. He didn't make any specific call to violence. But I mean, they're basically trying to incite a race war.
Well, it's all about division, right? And you know, I haven't read the Black Lives Manifesto in its entirety. From what I understand, it is basically a copy and paste of the Karl Marx's ideology, philosophy, whatever, and it's do with race, first of all, and I will be the first to admit, and I'm actually kind of sick and tired of hearing it that oh well, if you're white, you're racist, white privilege, whatever. I'm not racist. I'm classist. I believe there are different classes of people, and some of those classes, in my opinion, are garbage human beings. People who abuse children, people who abuse their partners, people who don't respect the dignity of others. Those are the lowest class of people, and those are the people I really have little tolerance for. It does not matter how much what is it, melon is in your skin. I've seen garbage from all walks of life.
Absolutely.
And I've seen geniuses from all walks of life, people that I want to emulate, that I want my kids to emulate. Doesn't matter, like I said, it's about the character of the individual, not hasn't, like, I don't know. And their argument, the Black Lives Matter argument, that oh well, if you're white, you'll never understand. Well, they say that if they're not white, how can they understand? If they're, I mean, like using their words and just turning it around. If they're saying I can't understand because I'm white, how can they understand if they're not white? But by their own argument. So I think it's so much easier to, and it's actually, I think, kind of unites people in that it's not. But who benefits from dividing people by race? Right, the people who want to control you, because it's much easier to control smaller groups than it is, a united, which is kind of what Abraham Lincoln said. Individually, we break easily, but when we're bundled together and united, you can't defeat us, right? And I'm totally not quoting exactly what he was saying because I can't remember it off the top of my head. I've had a few beers. But you get my point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I realize everything that we're talking about right now, and in no way has anything really to do with the theme of the show, the 2A talk and everything. But I mean,
but
we
it does,
can't
because
the
Second Amendment allows it protects us, right? Because when I talked about those people that want to control us, that want to divide us, the Second Amendment is the one tool we have to defend ourselves. Well, I mean, whether somebody wants to be an extremist group and incite violence, or whether it's just I went to a cookout over the Independence Day holiday, and I learned of these. They're called gypsies. Irish travelers. I think gypsies was for short, and basically they make their living going around shoplift. The women shoplift, and the men go around, offering or taking these bids to redo like elderly people's roofs. Like, oh, your roof needs to be fixed. They're like, oh, but we need X deposit up front, and then you never see or hear from them again. And I'm not even sure how or why it came up, but it kind of goes back to the class thing. But it's also, the Second Amendment is everybody's. Whether you're, red, white, blue, purple, green, black, brown, yellow, it's everybody's, and I think everybody should own it. I think you were telling me before the show about a rally, in which I think. People from very different spectrums, right? Black Lives Matter, the what do you call them? The boogologist or something. Yeah, Book Boys, and who else? Um,
Yeah, basically it
yeah,
was
I didn't get a chance.
it was and there's an article about it on richmond.com. There was another 2A rally in Virginia where you had BLM activists show up, you had Book Boys show up, and they were standing in unity with their fists in the air screaming and chanting white supremacy sucks. And this received virtually no media coverage whatsoever. And I think the biggest reason why is because the media does not want to show the country that there is unity.
Yeah, no, she's just kidding.
Oh, I didn't hear what she said.
Oh. It had to do with the way I just kidding. No. Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. Unity is the key, and I think that is important, no matter what side of the aisle you stand on. How you feel about our history and our future. I think anybody who's interested in protecting what they have and a future that they value would agree that the Second Amendment is by far maybe not the most important, but it is the tool that you need in order for all of your other rights to be defended. Because I can say, oh well, I have freedom of speech. Until somebody from a 3-letter agency is kicking in your door, shooting your dogs with a gun in your face, telling you to shut the fuck up after you've said it, right?
Right. And it's, I mean, that is a dangerous thought, and it does happen. What was and I mean, this had nothing to do with freedom of speech or anything like that. The girl's Breonna Taylor, I think it was her name, where police executed a no-knock warrant. She was shot and killed. Her boyfriend was taken into custody, and turned out the person they were looking for was already in custody.
Exactly, and you know, that is an absolute outrage, and you know, I'm outraged George Floyd video, and well, I mean the whole event, not just the fact that it was videotaped. I think it was, you know, the fact that we could see it, but the thing that's really outrageous, and why I'm kind of disappointed in the Black Lives Matter and in making it about race, was this is really about tyranny. You know, a government that is overstepping its bounds and not there to protect the people. And because I'm sure George Floyd isn't the only person that died at the hands of law enforcement. And I don't have the facts. I don't have the statistics. I don't know, but I find it hard to believe that was a unique case, and that it was because of the color of the skin. I think, that you know, in the right chemistry, any one of us could have been under the knee of that officer. And,
Right.
and that's really kind of the analogy of it all is when the government, right, the man in uniform, has his knee on your neck. What recourse do you have? You know, if it's not for the Second Amendment, what is it? You know, am I going to use harsh words and threatening language? You know, no. I mean, you can, great. You know, I'm all about peaceful protest and bringing attention to something. But at the end of the day, words are just talk. You need tools for act.
Absolutely, yes. And, you know, those tools, they come in the form of pistols, rifles, shotguns, maybe some explosive devices. I mean,
I'm you know, fireworks.
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
you know, they're needed for signaling. You know, smoke and Yeah. And you know, and man, if this doesn't get me investigated, I don't know what will. But I have often wondered, and this is just Rod wondering. This has nothing to do with the radio show or the platform that we're broadcasting from. This is absolutely my own thought. But why haven't the things that we saw in Iraq and Afghanistan, why haven't they made it here? And specifically VBID, suicide vests, roadside bombs. And I'm just curious, like what makes the American so different? I mean, is it because as Americans respect a lot, life more, and would rather stand up, mano a mano, face to face, maybe at in the town square at high noon. And I know I'm way off topic.
I would be all for some fucking quick draw action. I would be all for, and I think if we brought that shit back, a lot more people would be a lot less offended.
Yeah, and even if you just use salt guns, like a 410 shell loaded with salt.
Oh God, that is
okay. Okay, you lost it.
No, why are you trying to torture people? Jesus.
No, because then that way people are like, oh well, I murdered this person, right? Because oh well, they were just too slow on the draw. Well, they didn't even have a gun, right? You know what I mean? so it's like, oh well, I proved my point, and then the person you had the disagreement lives to tell a story and has to capitulate and say that, oh, you know what, Rod Burks is right in that he thinks that everybody should take classes.
I don't think in this day and age though, I don't think that's what you would get. I think it would be, I shoot you with rock salt and then you go and tell all your buddies, yeah, he got the drop on me, but I'd beat his ass. I'd beat his ass. Let me see him one more again. I'll beat his ass.
Yeah. Well, there's more salt where that came from, I guess. But
I really do think
of using rock salt for home security, and that I don't agree with. I think if right, in the state of South Carolina, as an instructor, I'm required to teach students that your first obligation is to avoid confrontation,
right,
and then escape if you find yourself in this situation where hey, look, things are escalating. And then as a last resort, defend. But my idea of defense isn't necessarily rock salt, and maybe to be very, very effective. If you have very good shot placement. Because I can't imagine that your vision would remain 20/20 after getting a face full of rock salt.
I honestly can't say I think it would be either.
Yeah.
At the same time,
but I think you're right. I think in that case, it's
at the same time, I've never been shot with rock salt, and I don't want to put myself in a position where, that's not. I don't think that's considered part of the non-lethal training for law enforcement. I've been hit with a taser. I've been hit with pepper balls. I've been hit with bean bags. None of those are fun. But certainly, I think I would take any of those over being shot with rock salt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But if if the option were rock salt or hot lead, I'd take the rock salt. But my point is that I don't think it's good for home security. I think whatever you need it. If you're going to guns, you've already flown right past the ability to avoid it and escape from it. It's time to put it in action, and that action needs to be definitive and terminate whatever the threat is, and not just because I've been hit with a taser. And what I learned, and like it wasn't the taser that they shoot out of, with the two little prods or prongs.
Right.
It was one of those handheld tasers. And what I discovered was that taser will buy time. Much. You better have a backup plan. Like, hey, what happens next? Your contingency operation after you use this taser, it doesn't incapacitate. The way, maybe the way the ones do, and you can keep zapping them. So that's why I've got daughters, and I told them no. I would much rather you have a firearm than a taser. I mean, have the taser, have the pepper spray, whatever, as an escalation of force. But yeah, don't let that be your final solution, because in a blind rage, I'm confident that yeah, the taser is gonna really piss me off more. And I'm talking about the handheld ones, the kinds you buy at pawn shops and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it'll buy you a second. It might stun, but it's not going to change my mind on if I'm a criminal mind trying to execute some devious crime that makes you feel threatened for your life. Yeah, the taser should be used to buy you enough time to get out your firearm.
Absolutely. I mean, me personally, especially down here in Alabama, where it's fucking 5 degrees south of Satan's Kitchen, for the most part, and because I have such a large firearm that I carry, I don't always conceal carry. So yes, I'm kind of painting a target on my back, but at the same time, that's also kind of my escalation right there. Like that's my step one to escalation. I'm carrying a gun. Don't fuck with me.
Yeah, and I don't know that South Carolina, my state, not at all an open carry state. So I've never been confronted, because sometimes I'll be a full size firearm that doesn't conceal well under a shirt, and I carry it outside the waistband, on the hip, and it rides high, so if the t-shirt's pulled down, yeah, I'm fine. But if I was at the gas station earlier filling up gas cans for the lawnmower, and I just happened to notice that my t-shirt had come up over and onto the inside of my firearm, and so I pull it back down. But I don't know. Have you ever been confronted by law enforcement? Unintended or even intentional open carry situation?
No, because actually in the state of Alabama, open carry is permitted without a license. So the only license you are required to have in the state of Alabama is concealed carry. And that's if you're concealed carrying or if you're transporting loaded in a vehicle. And the only time...
Well, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because South Carolina, you don't need a permit to carry loaded in your vehicle, unless you intend to carry it on your person or under your seat.
Yes, and it's the same way in Alabama. You can transport without a permit in your vehicle, but the weapon and the ammunition, the weapon has to be unloaded, and the ammunition has to be locked away and stored in a separate part of the vehicle, and neither one can be within arm's reach of anybody in the vehicle.
And that's interesting, because you can open carry, but to carry in your car, it's got to be conditioned for.
Well, if you're carrying loaded inside your vehicle, it's considered concealed in the state of Alabama.
So how do you open carry? Like let's say you're open carry and you want to drive from point A to point B. So are you now concealed if you're in your vehicle and you have to condition for your firearm and then throw the magazine in the trunk, or what?
If you do not have a license to concealed carry, yes. If you do have a license to concealed carry, then you can carry in your vehicle condition 1.
Interesting. South Carolina is you can carry condition 1 in your glove box, in your center console, where in the vehicle, except for under the seat or in the open. As long as obviously you are legally authorized,
Right.
carry or own and possess a firearm. So I believe I think you got to be 21 for handguns, and I may be mixing up my states because I just went to visit my kids in Missouri, and yeah, they're not. They can only have handguns if they're going to or from competition. They can't get permits, can't buy them, blah blah blah.
That's pretty stupid. But no, the one encounter that I have had with law enforcement is concerning me carrying a firearm. Was my truck had broken down in the middle of the road, and I was sitting there, I had my flashers on, and I was maybe half a mile from the police station. And so an officer shows up, he parks behind me, has his lights on, and I'm sitting there waiting on a tow truck, and he even though I had a jacket on and I was carrying concealed, I guess he saw the bottom of the holster sticking out of the jacket or something, I don't know. But he pointed it out to me and he said, "I noticed you're carrying a firearm right there. Do you have a concealed carry permit?" I said, "Yes, sir, I do." And then he just stood there and kept looking at me. And I looked at him, and there was this awkward silence between the two of us. And then I finally asked him, I said, "Do you need to see it?" "Well, yeah, I kind of need to see it." "Why the fuck didn't you tell me to produce it then?" Instead of just standing there staring at me like a fucking deer in the headlights.
Yeah, and I don't know. God bless law enforcement. The good ones anyway. I've kind of encountered, a couple of types. And my encounters were good. I will say this. But I've heard stories, and maybe they were inexperienced law enforcement officers, but people who were exercising their Second Amendment rights were basically thrown on the ground, cuffed and stuffed, for no other reason than having a firearm, and that they were legally authorized to have.
Right.
And it makes me wonder why would somebody who's so afraid of the people they're trying to protect, why would they go into profession? Maybe a profession like that, where hey, you know what? Yeah, you're going to put your life on the line, and somebody may shoot at you. With all of that authority, well, I just don't get it.
I don't know. Changing gears though, real quick, I will say, I have been doing some searching here lately. I love my Omnivore holster that I have, because pretty much any pistol that I can attach my flashlight to, it'll run in that holster. But it's it's real bulky, all this other stuff. So I've been on the search for a new holster, and I'd like something a little bit more streamlined, something that's a little bit more molded for my pistol with the light. And I've been looking at Safariland. I've also been thinking about going with something for a tactical setup with a drop offset. So that way, it rides a little bit lower, a little bit more of a natural hang point for my hand to just hang there and everything. And I came across a drop offset rig for Safariland holsters. They're made for Safariland. It's actually a Safariland drop offset. But this one, most of the ones that I've seen, they have belt attachments for you to attach it to your war belt or duty belt, whatever. No, this one actually had a paddle attachment. So it was the Safariland drop offset high ride thigh rig with a single leg strap for you to mount your holster on with a paddle attachment instead of attaching it to a belt.
Now, do you have experience using the paddle attachment holsters?
Yes. My Omnivore, I run that with a paddle. Pretty much every holster that I carry that is not my drop leg holster, I run that with a paddle.
Really, and you prefer those, I guess. I mean, obviously, if you have multiple.
Yes. I certainly prefer a paddle over a belt holster.
Really. Because I've got, the only two types I have, and maybe I have one that's paddle like, but I'm not thinking it's paddle. But I've got the ones with the end, right? There's you have to weave the belt through it as you get dressed in the morning. And then you have the ones that clip onto the belt, and it's not really. When I think of paddle, I think of something that's the same size as the gun, whereas a clip is something that's like maybe an inch or two wide, but not the whole length. Is that a fair and accurate description of the difference, or is my clip one also considered a paddle in your?
I guess. I mean, you're talking about you're talking about the clip that basically just clips around your belt, correct?
Right. Yeah, and yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I think that's still considered a belt holster. The paddle, the paddle's designed to be worn between your body and I guess your pants. Basically, it doesn't. I mean, I guess you could clip it onto a belt, but it's really more designed for the paddle to just slide down inside your pants, and it gives me more range of motion to be able to move it around my body without having to undo my belt or anything like that, or having to undo the clip to move it past the belt loops and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Now, is it you? Can you turn the gun? Like, say you want to go from a strong side carry to a small of the back carry. I mean, can you like turn the gun around 180 degrees so that it can be drawn from the other side, or is it a one directional?
No, if the holster will allow the setup, which I don't think Blackhawks. I don't think Blackhawks would allow a small of the back carry. Pretty much a Blackhawk holster on a paddle is the way it's set up. Is I think the most you could do would be like a 45-degree cant. So,
okay, so, but it's more of a rigid piece in that the gun only fits in one way.
Yeah, right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, the gun fits in the holster the one way, and then it's whatever way you can mount the holster to the platform, which, like I said, I think with Blackhawk, I think with their paddles, the most you can get is a 45-degree cant. So, if you've got a right-handed draw pistol, then you can either set it up for a right-handed draw, straight up and down 45-degree cant, or you could actually run it cross-draw on the weak side of your body.
Interesting. I'd be interested in trying a paddle type holster because, like I said, my experiences with the clips and then the belt, the ones with the loop, you have to thread your belt through in order to hold, which is fine and well, unless you want to take the gun and the holster off, and then you practically got to get undressed to do it. Especially depending on especially if you're left. I don't know how left-handed guys do it. Because I guess maybe I don't know, left and right-handed belts, in which the direction that you thread the belt through the loops on your breeches, like because mine, I only have to unthread, I guess, through one or two loops depending, to get the holster off. Whereas if I were left-handed, I'd have to take the belt all of the way off to get my holster off. And then, if I wanted to continue on about my day, at least while I was wearing my trousers, I'd have to put my belt back on.
Right.
But I'm not wearing pants right now, or am I?
Knowing you, I'm going to say solid maybe. Um,
Solid baby is right.
no, and that's the thing that I love love about a paddle holster is, if I go somewhere, say I'm going to the courthouse or something like that, and I can't carry my gun inside, better example, I'll use the bank. I can't carry my gun inside the bank, so what I'll do a lot of times is I'll just take the gun out of the holster and take the magazines out of the pouch, leave them sitting inside, and then I'll just wear the holster empty inside. But if I go to the courthouse where I can't wear an empty holster because I'll still set off the metal detector, then that's what I love about having the paddle is I don't have to stand out in the parking lot and undo my belt and risk some woman screaming potential rape and all of this other crap. I can just slide the paddle right off from the top of my pants and put everything inside the car and be done with it.
If I took my pants off in the courthouse parking lot, I would probably be laughed at more than yeah. Anyway, but hey, it's not the size of the bullet. It's how fast. Wait a minute. No, that's not what that didn't come out.
No,
anyway.
That's what she said.
All right, I'm just gonna leave it alone. No, she never said that.
Oh man, listen. I'm actually sending you this link for this rig that I found. Let's see here. There we go.
Yeah, my fiance has a pistol I really like to carry, and it's the SIG P365 SAS.
Yes.
The SIG anti-snag, and I traded for it, and when I got it, it was it had a holster with a clip on it. And I really like to carry it around whenever I'm on the grass or something because, snakes or, rabid armadillos or whatnot.
Killer rabbits.
Anyway, yeah. And a couple of the screws that had retained the clip onto the holster had backed out. And of course, I wasn't wearing it because I didn't want to sweat all over it. So I had it in a little compartment on my tractor. So it sat for a long and I found some other screws from another holster that worked and fit, and I put I got smart. I put some red Loctite, and I don't know if you've have experience with thread lockers. There's red and there's blue. Blue works pretty good in most cases.
Red, you're not going to get it undone.
Well, you can. It just takes a lot of heat. You need to put several hundred degrees of heat to it to get it to back off. So I like to use a red for my scopes and things on my guns because they can generate a lot of heat. So I was actually on a forum once. Whatever talking about. Oh yeah, I use thread locker, and they're like, they're like, are you freaking nuts? And I'm like, no, I don't want to have to buy my shit again or look for that 5/16 of a millimeter freaking screw that they in this gun. I want my shit to stay together. Anyway, but what I've noticed and why I like that gun and that holster is because now that the screws are permanently attached, and it's kind of a curse too because man, I cannot get that thing off. I mean, it clips onto the belt, but it's got this little retaining clip on the bottom that cinches on the bottom of your belt. That man, if I've had a few, anyway, I find it very difficult to get it off, sober or not.
Well, I'm going to take this opportunity since we're talking about gear and things like that. I'm going to take this opportunity to give my review on, I think it's MagTech or Maglock something. I don't know. It was a magnesium lower receiver that my friend Matt had bought to have me build an AR pistol with. And
magnesium, like the metal that if you get it hot enough burns.
Yes. Yeah.
So they made a receiver out of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Just a lower, not the upper.
Yeah, just a lower receiver. Well, I don't know if they make an upper receiver out of magnesium or not, but this one was a lower receiver, and it's supposed to be similar to polymer in that it's lighter weight and all that other stuff. But at the same time, it's also a weaker metal, gotta say. And he brings this lower receiver to me. It's the first time I've assembled a lower receiver in a year and a half. So I was a little bit rusty in remembering which parts need to go in first and so on and so forth. But I get to the point where I'm installing the detent and detent spring for the rear takedown pin. And every receiver that I've installed these things on before, the detent falls freely. Once you drop it in, it will fall freely all the way through, even into the receiver hole for the takedown pin. Like, you can see it fall all the way through. Well, I put in...
You're talking about the thing that clicks... that when you pull the rear takedown pin out, it's the part that
locks the rear takedown pin
sliding in and out.
Yes, it's the
in
rear.
The open position.
Yes. So
okay. I'm familiar with what you're talking
about. I'm installing the rear detent and detent spring, and I get everything put together. Castle nut is locked down, plate is locked down, everything's good to go. And I kind of, I was inspecting everything, and I noticed there was a gap between the upper receiver and the lower receiver. And I was like, well, that's not right. That shouldn't be there. That should be, I shouldn't see any daylight in there. It also didn't help that he had a side charging handle.
Was it uniform, or was it kind of a wedge shape?
Well, I mean, the thing about it was a side charging handle upper. So it has side charge handle on it, like a 249 or something like that.
Right.
And so that was the first thing I noticed about it. I was like, okay, maybe it's not marrying it up, but it'll still work. Everything is locked in. And then I rotate. I went to close that gap. I could grab the top of the receiver and the lower receiver, the bottom of the lower receiver, and push them together and close off that gap. But when I did, the rear takedown pin would just fall. Would just fall right out of place.
So
there was
the rear takedown pin.
Yes, the detent was not. They didn't mill out a big enough hole for the rear detent, for the rear takedown pin.
Mm-hmm.
So that spring was not putting any pressure onto the rear takedown pin. So when I squeezed the upper and the lower receiver together, the upper receiver basically rising up was the only thing that was creating tension on that rear takedown pin. But when I squeezed it together to close that gap, whoop, it just fell right out.
Right. So it sounds like you actually had two problems there. One that spring not pushing the retaining pin into the detent pin, and you didn't have a good fit from your upper and lower receiver, right?
Yes.
Am I understanding?
Yes.
What you're saying? Okay.
Yes, and it all boiled down to I started doing some research online on this magnesium lower receiver, and a lot of people had some really bad things to say about it. Kind of like when ATI first came out with their polymer AR lowers. And
I've had one of those.
Yes. Well, the first gens, they were notorious for the lower receiver cracking where the buffer tube ring is at. They were notorious for cracking there.
It's kind of like a high point, though. I mean, it's like you don't want to spend a lot of money on an AR. Well, you get what you pay for. And I'm not criticizing. Please don't. If you have a high point or one of these polymer lowers, I absolutely am not criticizing. I'm just describing that you're not getting quality, right? I mean, you're getting something. I don't know how many clients I've had say, "Hey, I want an AR, but I don't want to spend more than a couple $100 for it." And I'm like, "Well, save your money, man, because buy nice or buy twice."
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I am a huge proponent of, like you said, buy nice or buy twice. And I can't tell you the number of times, and it's not just been people with high points. It's been, I'd go to the range and, people can tell I obviously know a little bit about what I'm talking about when I show up at the range. So I've had people come up to me. I had one guy come to me with a little Jimenez Arms 380 pistol. He was having feed issues. He was having extraction issues. And I knew you can pick up one of these guns for less than $200. Like, I knew that right off the bat. So I'm looking it over, and I asked the guy, I said, how much did you pay for this gun? Well, my buddy sold it to me for $300. Well, your buddy fucked you over. I mean, you don't
buddy
have a
fucker.
Yeah.
Blue Falcon.
Yeah, straight up Blue Falcon. You basically, I wouldn't even recommend trying to drive nails with this thing. I wouldn't even recommend using it as a hammer. I would recommend that you just cut your losses, you save up some money. At the very least, I'd say save up about $350. $350 will get you a decent quality handgun. Something that will be reliable.
Yeah, and really, I mean, everybody's going to have their own reasons for owning a firearm, right? I mean, whether you're a collector, because if you're a collector, that's not going to get you a whole lot, right? Or maybe you're, you want to be a gunsmith and you want to learn how to work on them. Hey, you can buy guns all day for that price. And I guess there's so many. That's what I love about this. This industry of ours that we call the Second Amendment, and it's not really an industry, but I mean in the industry of exercising your Second Amendment, there are so many options. There's shotguns, there's rifles, there's pistols, there's some stuff that are hybrids between and that should have never been made, and things that everybody should own, and I mean I can go on and it's so exciting, but it is probably one of my more habits, and I've tried to cost by, getting, I started by, buying a few guns and then finding somebody who wanted to trade and then just trade up what you want if you can. And sometimes you win, sometimes you don't.
Right.
But it's,
and that was, when I first got into gunsmithing, I was actually in some groups on Facebook before they got shut down, and I found this guy. He had a brand new Stevens tactical 12 gauge, and I know that brand new they're $300-400 average. He was selling his. He had just bought it, and he was having issues with it. And he decided he wasn't a fan of it anyways, so he was just going to sell it. I wound up buying it from him for like $150. And thinking to myself, okay, this would be a good little, starter project. It's having some feed issues and some extractor issues. Turned out it extracted shells just fine. He was having issues getting it to feed the next shell. Damn thing just needed to be oiled up. They just didn't put enough oil in it from the factory.
Well, a lot of times they put like a packing grease on there, and that you have to clean up. Like when I buy some of my dyes, reloading. If you don't clean that grease off, you're gonna have issues. So I mean, I've seen like an M1 Garand and they still had the grease on it, and of course I was told no, that shit's great. It'll fucking she'll keep singing. Even with the packing grease on there, but I mean, I still like. I don't know. I don't like my girls to be chunky with a bunch of grease on them. I like them to be oiled and slick. You know what I mean?
Oh man. Well, I think we're running out of time, so I think that's a good place to leave it there. So I'm going to take the opportunity real quick. You can go on Facebook and look us up at 2AT Second Amendment Talk. You can like us, follow us, interact with us, let us know what you think, share us some of your gun stories. The funnier the better, absolutely. Tell us how your 4th of July went, if you had a good celebration and everything, or Whatever the case may be. Again, like I said, the funnier the better. If you got a video of Terry and he fixed the reverse on his wheelchair, then show us. We want to know. Also, Monday nights you can tune in and catch my show, Two Beards Talking with Matt Lassiter. Oh my God, we've had no shortage of things to talk about there. So you can also look us up there on Facebook, Two Beards Talking. Same thing, like us, follow us, interact with us. Also, don't forget to check out Rod's page on Facebook, 2A Training, and check him out on there. I'm sure he's still posting some good, helpful tips and everything on there. So I got nothing else. Rod, you got anything for him?
Man, be safe and belated Happy Independence Day.
Absolutely, yes. This has been... Actually, before I do that, again, we want to give a big shout-out to the troops out there, to the men and women serving overseas and on the home front. We appreciate everything y'all are doing for us. Keep up the good work and come home safe. We're all rooting for you here back home. This has been 2AT, Second Amendment Talk, right here on Armed Radio. I'm Daniel Sanders for Rod Burks. Thanks for listening, everybody.